What is going on, guys? Thanks for watching the channel. Matt Smith here as always. Like and subscribe down here. You know the drill. Well, we're here. Finally, the bye week is officially over, Rover. And I, for one, am thrilled about it. It was a nice little break, a little downtime. Certainly, maybe a little bit boring last weekend without the Buffs. But, I think for their sake and for the sake of what they're trying to do this year, the first bye week came at a really good time for them. They got a chance to shut the engines down, go 4-1 in the first stretch, kind of recalibrate. They do have some important players needing some recovery time. So I actually think it was a blessing in disguise. And Coach Prime has said as much throughout the week so far. And look, now you gear the engines back up, same as Kansas State is doing right now, for a massive matchup Saturday evening on ESPN, 10:15 Eastern, 8:15 Mountain. I'm guessing that's going to be more of like an 8:30 kick. We see that a lot of the time when we're talking about some of these late games, right? They kind of run late the game before it. Maybe it's a tight one, overtime or something like that. And I'm guessing it's more of an 8:30, maybe 10:30 Eastern kick. So look, this is a huge one. Both these teams come into this game 4-1. Kansas State right now, I think if you were to ask around and talk to people who know college football, and certainly from the temperature check that I've taken myself this week from national media, Kansas State is a team that a lot of people expect to compete for the Big 12 title. They consider Kansas State to be the class of the Big 12 or near it, at least in the conversation, right? Avery Johnson, you got DJ Giddens, you got Chris Kleinman's team, and that's a coaching staff that has a long-standing history of success, right? This is North Dakota State on steroids to a degree. That's where they're from. They do a lot of the same stuff, and it's actually a good thing, I think. Coach Prime talked about how he wishes that Rick George hadn't scheduled North Dakota State, and that wasn't their first game of the year. But maybe it actually turns out to be a really good thing since they've seen that. They've kind of played against that style, and certainly they played against essentially 5 consecutive rushing teams to start the year. So they've got a good handle on what it takes to stop the ground game, but this is the biggest test that they're going to have faced to this point. I think, coming off that UCF game, they had those gaudy numbers, but we talked about it, how they really hadn't played, much of anybody because they were, 3-0 with 2 wins against New Hampshire and Sam Houston State. And then their win against TCU, they won because of a missed field goal and they had to rally back, right? So we weren't sure who UCF really was. And come to find out, that 2-touchdown line that we talked about last weekend being too high, well, we were spot on about that because we saw what Colorado did. And nobody had that coming. I certainly didn't have that coming. It was incredibly impressive. And we've talked about it in previous episodes here. And certainly like and subscribe all the videos in the channel. If you missed anything, I've got a bunch of playlists. Go back through there. But when I'm looking at this matchup in particular, this is one that when you look at the schedule, first thing it comes out, you think to yourself, well, this is a Kansas State team that is going to bring you a game in Boulder. And thank goodness that game is here this year. It'd be a different challenge having to go to Manhattan, right? The Little Big Apple, they call it there in Kansas. And now it's here, and you're even more glad it's at home because you're coming off the bye week. And for fans, they haven't seen CU for the most part at home in 3, actual calendar weeks for the most part, because it's going to be at the end of the day on Saturday. And so this is a great opportunity to welcome them back off the biggest win of the Coach Prime era. Late game, the fans are going to be nice, and they're going to have a liquor blanket going, right? I mean, let's call it what it is. Be 8:30 on a Saturday night in Boulder. It's going to be a beautiful fall evening. The students are going to be at it all day long. Everybody's going to be hyped up for this one. What is now a massive statement opportunity for Colorado. They beat Baylor. They went on the road and hammered UCF, and they proved to the country that they need to be taken seriously. But are they a contender? Do they need to be taken seriously as a contender? That's what we're about to find out on Saturday night against Kansas State. In my opinion, it's the best all-around team they have faced to this point. I think it's the best offense they've faced, and they're solid defensively. But I think Colorado has plenty of areas where they can expose Kansas State in this one. And another big test for Coach Prime and the rest of this coaching staff. How about coming off 2 weeks for Gus Malzahn to prepare for CU? CU thoroughly outcoached and outstrategized Central Florida. That was a very nice sign because I think they've been headed in the right direction. They've been doing more and more of the right things, but it validates even further that their process is working right now. And I think you have another major test with Chris Kleiman here and this Kansas State coaching staff. I think it's really important for Colorado to come out and show well, and it's intriguing to me to no end because last year we know what happened at the bye week. It was the Stanford game last year, and Sean Lewis did not adjust throughout the course of the bye week. I don't know what this guy was doing. Was he in Cabo? Sorry, I got a little bug around me. He's just driving me crazy. He's on my screen. I got him now. God, that was just, I mean, he's just like a little fly. Like Avery Johnson, just get out of here. Anyway, so Sean Lewis, more like Sean Lewis, get out of here. So, yeah, look, I don't know what he did at the bye week. They didn't adjust. I mean, just point blank, period. And UCLA saw it all on film. They said bet, and they hammered Shedeur. I'm sure you guys remember that game. That was the one, Shedeur is just like slouched over on the sideline. And again, you can't do that. I don't think they're going to have done that. Pat Shurmur talked about how he really looked into his tendencies prior to that UCF game this week. And he told us that he made sure not to do that. We heard from Ted Roof, their defensive coordinator, that they weren't ready for the 11 personnel. They weren't ready for what Colorado threw at them, which is the biggest compliment this coaching staff's received to this point. And now you got another test. Here's another test against another staff with another bye week. I think Colorado's 3-1 coming off their last 4 byes, and I don't think Kansas State has been very good. I want to say maybe like 0-3 actually off their last 4 byes, but you're gonna have to check me on that one. That was one that I looked up earlier in the week. I can't remember it off the top of my mind at the moment. Okay, so game plan. This is what I'm most intrigued by. As I'm mentioning, I did not get the fly. Whatever, he'll come back around, and I'll eventually get him. How do they adjust? Okay, what did they find in the bye week? What did you find in your self scout? Because one thing, as I just mentioned, you cannot do is come out and show the same stuff that you did. Now, I want to see more of what they've done, but you've got to throw different wrinkles. You've got to disguise it differently, and you've got to throw new looks and maybe some of the stuff that you've kept in the back of your playbook since training camp. Maybe this is a good time to bring some of that stuff out. By the way, on that note, and I want to be on the record, I am still waiting for the Travis Hunter touchdown pass. It is coming. I don't know when it's coming. I'm still waiting for it. The kid can huck it. I know we saw Jimmy Horn with one last year. Now it's time for it was Jimmy Horn, wasn't it? Yeah, it was Jimmy Horn last year. And now it's time for a touchdown pass from Travis Hunter at some point. Just a little, maybe a throwback or reverse, who knows? But Travis is going to make one. I mean, you want to talk about another Heisman moment? At some point, we need to see it. We need to see it. And you've heard it here first. I'm calling it at some point this year. Travis Hunter is going to have a touchdown pass. That's a promise. Okay. Drive starters. I think this game offensively for Pat Shurmur, it's a big one. Quick game. Let's get the ball out of Shedeur's hands in a hurry, and let's set Colorado's offense up to win on first and second down to get themselves into third and short to continue to extend drives. One thing that Kansas State's going to try to do to you, they're going to try to shrink the game and extend drives themselves. It's going to be a very similar style to, again, what we saw from North Dakota State, and that was what they did in that first half. They did a great job of staying on the field, converting on third down, and keeping Colorado's defense on the field and Shedeur Sanders on the sideline. And obviously, that's what every opponent's going to want to do when you're playing the best quarterback in the country with the best player, non-quarterback in the country, and Travis Hunter on offense, not to mention all of their other skill talent. However, it's really important on Saturday night to be able to string together some longer drives yourself, especially because you're at home. You're going to have the crowd behind you. Important, I think, tempo, I think pace are going to be important in this one, and really just poise. Shedeur at the line, reading what's going on so that he can get his team in the best position to have success on a play-to-play basis, as he always does. But drive starters, to me, are crucial. I just think quick game, inside slants, drag routes, crossing routes. That's one thing that I think we could see more from Pat Shurmur's offense. Just drag some guys across the field and let's get a couple of easy completions here and get Jimmy Horn and LeJonte Wester and Will Shepherd the ball more frequently in space to do something with it, right? I think they've done a good job so far. It's time to add more and more and more and throw some different things, and we just don't see them use a lot of crossers, and I think crossers would be big, especially early in drives, right? Drive starters, let's get the first down, get out of here and start to, build some rhythm here. Commitment to the running game, I also think, to kind of tie off of that quick game is going to be important. Kansas State, they've had 12 sacks, I want to say, in 5 games, but a decent amount of pressures. One thing that we don't know, at least I don't know yet, is completely who this Colorado offensive line is. I've heard people, well, it kind of takes some time for these guys to gel. And while that's true, these guys haven't been together very much. Like you keep rotating guys in and out of the lineup, and it's been a different five due to injury or due to having to change things up because it's not working, like moving Tyler Brown into left guard and taking Mayers out of the lineup. But I don't know who they are. Are they the offensive line that, got Shedeur killed against Baylor? I mean, is that who they are? Are they the offensive line who went on the road against a bad UCF defensive line? I mean, they only had one sack in 3 games. Again, 2 of those against New Hampshire and Sam Houston State entering last, 2 weekends ago. Okay, they had 2. So it doubled their season total. I'm not reading too much into that because one of them was in the second half when Jordan Seaton had to miss a drive. The point was, though, I'm not exactly sure who they are yet, and you have a better caliber athlete pretty much across the board, I would say, than you probably have seen to this point defensively outside of maybe Nebraska. I mean, definitely outside of Nebraska. It's the second best defense they've seen since second or third. Like Baylor's got a good defense now. Like that team is, I don't think they're as bad as some people think, but I've certainly seen much, much worse. I mean, come through Folsom Field. Again, it's all about those tendencies for Shermer. He talked about how, he was like, we're a 10 personnel team, which is, one back, no tight ends. And when you're doing that, it's just so much pressure on Shedeur. And I think some of that's important because of all the talent that they have. And, certainly, it can help sometimes in the quick game to have more receivers out there and, on third downs and third and longs. But it was getting into 11 personnel. 67% of the snaps against Central Florida came with a tight end on the field. I think that's doing wonders for their offense. It's giving Shedeur more time because you've got another guy to chip and help out so edges can't pin their ears back. It also looks more like a run, so you can disguise things more. You can go, run pass action. You can do, a bunch of different little things in play action. That's one thing that I think we have yet to really see Colorado's offense implement to a severe degree. And I wonder if we do end up seeing more of that as they continue to layer more complexity into the offense. I think it could be good. Now, Shedeur is going to have to do better, I think, overall on his run fakes to really sell some of that, because I think that's, as we're talking about him and like nitpicking his game, we've talked about this on my show before. I've got the highest standard for Shedeur because he is the number 1 overall pick. I want to see those details of his game improve on a week-to-week basis. I think he's gotten better at it this year. Last year it was, I don't know why Sean Lewis had him in the RPO constantly because they just never were going to run the ball, and it got him found out and solved. But this year I think they're doing things a little bit better. We've seen some play action looks, some RPO-esque looks from the Buffs certainly, and it's worked. So I think when they commit to it, it matters, and a strong commitment to the ground game. Again, if you can get to the 120-yard rushing threshold in this game, I think you beat Kansas State. I do. I mean, I would be surprised unless they turn the ball over, and I think whoever wins the turnover battle is, going to be really well positioned to win this game. Colorado had 4 against UCF. Can you generate takeaways against Avery Johnson? One thing you see on film is when he gets pressured, when you're able to manipulate him around the pocket, he can make some mistakes, and you've got to be ready on the back end because there's going to be some jump balls. It's kind of like the Fowler-Nicolosi effect we talk about with Colorado State, how you're going to have a couple opportunities per game. Well, with Avery Johnson, if you're able to generate kind of a bit of a pass rush, but keep him in the pocket to the point where he doesn't have easy lanes to escape. And that's something that they did really well last week against KJ Jefferson in Central Florida. Here's the thing though. Okay. That is a big man. It's like a school bus out there. It's like a dump truck out there running on the field. Avery Johnson ain't like that. He's got some quicks now. He's got some agility. He can get to the outside the numbers and hit a home run on you. You turn around before you say Bob's your uncle and he's gone. Right? That is the type of player that can really hurt you. So you have to be very sound. And one thing that it looked like to me against Central Florida, one thing that it looked like to me is that they had really good contain, but I think they had a step on him because I just don't think KJ Jefferson's that fleet of foot. He's just more of a machine, kind of a battering ram coming up the, A and B gaps. That's kind of how they run him there. Avery Johnson, it's more on the run. It's more improvised. It's more when the play breaks down. And when you're in man coverage, one thing that can be tricky is you can lose sight of the quarterback, especially if he's extending a play, and bam, you get beat for like a 25-yard chunk run. And those are the situations Colorado's going to have to avoid, especially on third downs. Like that is key. Getting Kansas State off the field on third down, I think is going to be really important. And I think Colorado's third down defense has gotten better the last few weeks, certainly. I mean, if we look at what they've done in the second half specifically, they're tied for 10th in the country right now, allowing opponents just 5 points per game in second halves this year. That's down from 15.6 last year. That's a significant decrease. I don't know if that's sustainable, but if it is, you're locking teams down. It's kind of like the chokehold, you know what I mean? It's like the rear naked choke in the second half. They get on you and they kind of just suffocate you. You know, the python there, which I mean would be great if that was the identity of Colorado's defense all year, but you're going to have better competition. It's just going to get harder and harder, especially as stakes get higher and higher and games get tighter and tighter as the season goes longer and longer. There's a lot of doubles there. We talked about the turnovers. Look, and I talked about the book says, right? What does the book say about this game? Well, perennially in Colorado history, I'm going to just keep it real with you. Book says you lose this game, probably in a bit of a heartbreaker. Now, I'm not thinking that's happening here because I think Colorado has banked enough right now to have a lot of confidence. I think Coach Prime has revved the engines the best they can and gotten this team, you know, kind of plugged back into the matrix, Mr. Anderson, right? Get back in there, Neo, and you know, go find Mr. Smith and get back to work type of situation. Because, you know, I just there's a sense of buy-in here that now that you're winning more and more and more, guys want to work harder and harder and harder. And that's the sign of a team that really is starting to believe in themselves and believe they can accomplish something special. And all that work they put into training camp actually does matter, and it is paying off. And that is the sign typically of a team that can go and make a run when the season gets tight late. And Colorado showing signs. This is a massive test to prove whether or not, you know, maybe those signs just they were signs and nothing more, or is it real? And I think on Saturday night, how do you start this game is a big one as well. You don't want to get down and, you know, kind of like the North Dakota State game, have to claw your way back, and Baylor have to kind of claw your way back. I don't know if you're going to be able to, quite frankly, against Kansas State. Kansas State can run the ball, and maybe you can. And maybe you can, because I think they're susceptible through the air, but it's not a position that you want to be in. And it's one they're familiar with to a degree, just because of the nature of kind of how they've been a bit up and down up until this point so far. But the truth is that this offense should be able to hang some points on Kansas State's defense. I think they're susceptible now. If you can make sure you run enough to open up what you can do in the passing game and kind of keep them guessing, I think Shedeur can carve this passing defense apart. I think they're 108th right now in the country in explosive plays given up. Well, Colorado is an explosive, capable offense. Travis, LeJonte, Jimmy, Will, go down the list, Omarion, you know, of all these guys who can, Augustive, who can make big time plays for you. I think Colorado can I think they can have a quick strike ability in this game, and I'm curious to see how that ends up playing out. This is a big one for Shedeur Sanders too, by the way. This is a big game for Shedeur Sanders. I need to see him show up in a way that is going to make a statement to the rest of the country, and he always does. That's the one. He is the most consistent on this team. I mean, outside of Travis. I mean, he's the most consistent on this team. On Travis, really quickly. One thing that I haven't seen a lot of people talking about, and hopefully we're too far into the pot at this point for the casuals and the bettors and the Kansas State coaches to actually pick up on. But Travis got tagged pretty good, oh, by the way, against Central Florida. I believe it was the fumble recovery by Cam Silman-Craig for touchdown. Cam kind of ran right through Travis's knee. And honestly, very lucky Travis didn't blow his knee out. God forbid, knocking on every piece of wood. But if you've been watching the Well-Off Media videos and you've got your Sherlock Holmes, you know, monocle out, you know, you can tell that Travis has had a knee brace on and a knee wrap on. And a couple of days ago was pretty big. And then it kind of like, I think they taped it up yesterday. We'll see if he ends up playing with one. But he got him pretty good because he tagged the inside of his knee, Silman-Craig did, as he was returning that for a score, and Travis's knee kind of like bowed out and he kind of like limped off the field. And I think he was maybe more important than anyone to get this other extra week of rest, honestly. It kind of is a blessing in disguise. You know, the other thing is Kansas State on the road this year has not been great. I mean, you look at what they did against BYU. That's a very fluky game. I don't love to take too much out of that. Avery Johnson turned the ball over, or at least Kansas State's offense did, twice with like a minute 15 left to go in the second quarter, right before halftime. And then coming out of the locker room, he throws a pick, and they're down like, I think it's like 24-6 at that stage. And then there's the flukiest punt return for touchdown you've ever seen where the guy goes back to like the 5 and then hooks it out of there. Kansas State, Oklahoma State, similar, right? I mean, Oklahoma State, turned the ball over a lot. Kansas State got all over them 42-20, but that's at home, on the road against Tulane. They won 34-27, barely beating those guys, but Tulane's got a good offense now. I mean, they got a good quarterback who can throw the ball a little bit, and they put up 71 points, I think it was a couple of weeks ago. So, I think Tulane might be a little bit better than people give them credit for, although admittedly, I mean, it's not, power forward level, but it is what it is. This Kansas State team on the road just hasn't been as strong as they have been at home. And remember, Avery Johnson isn't like a senior. He's a sophomore. Okay. He's a sophomore. He's a younger guy. You're coming into a raucous environment. The Gold Rush game, just a reminder out there to fans, it is a Gold Rush game. They're asking everybody to wear yellow. It is what it is, but get loud, right? Like be electric and have that extra one, prior to kickoff. Because I think Colorado's going to need that energy from the crowd to like rev the engines going right away, right, to kind of feed off of it. Going to be a late one, ESPN national game. By the way, Saturday is an amazing day of college football. If you haven't looked across the schedule yet, it is a fantastic day of college football. Here's an interesting number for you, by the way. I just found this one out, and I kind of was just kind of looking at it. I was like, let me do some math here. How about this? Colorado has outscored opponents 124-61 since the second half started in the Nebraska game. Let me say that again. Colorado has outscored opponents 124-61 since the second half of the Nebraska game. Hey, man, they're hot. Okay, let's see if the bye week cooled them off a little bit. I'm hoping it didn't, and Kansas State's the same way, right? Kansas State goes into the bye week with a big win as well, except that one was at home. Now they got to pack their band up, take it on the road, and see if they can perform, right? Do you get the standing ovation in Folsom Field at the end of the game from your little section of a fan base down in the northwest corner? Hopefully not. For Colorado fans, you hope that, you come out, you make the statement that I think not only the fans have been, begging to see, but the coaching staff, like, repeat a dominant performance and show everyone what we inside the building believe. We believe we're for real. Now go prove it to the country that they should put some respect on Colorado's name when we talk about Big 12 title. Because if they win this game, that's going to be the talk. Colorado could even be the favorite if they beat Kansas State. And if they did it convincingly, who knows? Let's talk about this game a little bit, how we think it's going to play out. Total in this game, the point spread, right? The line, the amount of points that Vegas expects to be scored. It opened up at 49.5 combined. Well, of course, now it's moved up to 55.5. People hammered that early. That's a 6-point movement in the line. People think there will be points scored. How about the game line? Well, Kansas State, they opened up a 6.5-point favorite, just about a touchdown favorite. Now that's all the way down to 3.5. You know what that's saying? You know what that's saying? Public sees some value in Colorado. Public sees some value in Colorado at home. They recognize what the Buffs went on the road and did to Central Florida, because how could you ignore it when you win 48-21 and hammer a team as a double-digit underdog? And not just a double-digit underdog, a multiple touchdown underdog. America's paying attention more and more and more and taking them more seriously. They've been watching. But now they've been watching with real intrigue that goes, oh, we might get a second act this year, and maybe even a third, who knows? Because they had one act. They had one act last year, and then it pretty much all fell apart. Like the second and third last year was just, it was like, honestly, it was like the second and third acts of Hamilton. When I went and saw Hamilton, we were in London, and I went and saw Hamilton, and the first act was great, wonderful. I could see why everybody, the Broadway, the musical, Lin-Manuel Miranda. I could see why everybody was glossing it and, talking about how great it was. And I was like, wonderful. And then, after intermission, awful. So that's exactly what happened last year, and it can't be what happens this year. Here's the truth. I got Colorado. Buffs are hot. Keep it rolling here. They do. I think I told Brian 34-29 on his podcast. I'm probably going to stick with that. I am. Maybe it ends up being a little bit lower scoring of a game, because I think both these defenses are playing better overall, and hopefully Colorado's defense hits the ground running and picks up where they left off. That's very important to this equation as well, right? Very important to this equation. Get an early lead, lean on them a little bit, take the air out of the ball. And when you do have the lead, make sure that you're killing a little bit of clock along the way. Like that you're not just trying to race to put up some points here. I think that you got to be a little bit methodical in your approach because you do have the home field advantage. I'm taking Colorado 34-29. I'm taking Buffs to go 5-1, and we head to Tucson next week with the most buzz in the country and probably being the number one talked about college football team on Monday morning, despite the insane weekend of games. Do you realize Penn State plays USC? Ohio State plays Oregon. I mean, go up and down the list of the incredible matchups that we have on Saturday. Colorado, if they beat Kansas State, will be the most talked about team on Monday. But we knew that. All right, guys, let me know what you think in the comments. Huge one for Colorado. This is a massive opportunity. This is the game that proves whether or not you need to be taken seriously on a national level as a true Big 12 title contender, because right now you've seriously caught people's attention. And now put a little, exclamation point on the end of that sentence and goes, no. We're right there. And we're coming for it. And we'll see you in Tucson next week. Can't wait. It's going to be a great one. Follow along. By the way, for all my new subscribers, thanks so much for subscribing to the channel, showing your love and support. I really appreciate it. I'm going to be doing a bunch of different things. We'll be having some guests on next week. Here's a little tease for you. I got Sean Moreno, good buddy of mine, former Broncos running back, and, of course, former NFL first-round pick, former stud at Georgia. He'll be joining me next week, talk a little Buffs as well. Sean and I are buddies, and that'll be fun. Also got some other guests I'm pretty sure lined up for next week as well, as we will be on the road to the desert down there. Should be a hot one next Saturday. Looking forward to that one, but, nothing without what happens tomorrow night, and I hope to see you out there, and, I can't wait to see it, and make sure you're dialed in right after the game. I'm going to do the best I can to get my post-game recap up. Now, let me ask you a question here. Would you like a live, for a post-game recap? Talk to me from the field. Would you like that? I'm not sure I can pull it off with the Wi-Fi there. But if it is possible, I'm looking into investigating it. Let me know in the comments. We're going to figure all this stuff out as we go. I appreciate you being here with me and, showing me love and support. Again, like and subscribe. That's really what helps me out and grows my audience the most. I really appreciate it once more. Matt Smith, and we'll talk to you after the game.